So have fun, guys.
And I'm assuming we've been on air.
We are now. Yeah, 14 seconds.
Okay, good. Welcome to the Deeper Dive, then, presented by awesomemode.com. I'm Dave Loughran. That's Adam Shar. We've got a 7-game slate, but let me tell you something. Writing the deep dive today, and Adam, I know you've dealt with this before. Sometimes smaller slates can feel a lot bigger than they are, and vice versa. This is only a 7-game slate, but it feels like there are so many moving parts and things that we've got to pin down. So we've got about an hour to make it happen.
Yeah, and just kind of from an overarching strategy point to what you said, there's a lot of moving pieces on this slate, and there's a lot of things that you really just cannot be that certain about. So it's the kind of slate where, obviously make your best guesses, and we will as we go through the show, but just keep in mind that if there's pay closer attention to ownership, like on these, questionable plays where we could be wrong pretty easily by 6 to 8 minutes on different guys. Just go against the field on slates like this because nobody has an idea of exactly what's going to happen.
The chat is surprised, very much so, that you have hair.
Oh yeah, I had too much of it. That's why I was wearing a hat every day.
That's a good point. Adam looks like he just got laid, says Lee King Snatch.
I like that you just said that on that name on air.
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
That was a good one.
What are you gonna do? It's a nice name and a fitting comment. We're glad to have you with us, though, man. We've got a good show ahead of us, so let's dive right into it. 7 games, and we'll get to the Spurs game last. That one should be fascinating, to say the least. We'll kick it off here with, what do we have? 1, 2, 3. Only one game at 7:30 p.m. lock. If you're wondering why we started at 5:30, that's because 7:30 lock. Brooklyn and Denver. So this game is actually one that I expect to see quite a bit of scoring. Right now, you've got the total at, well, it was 225. Yeah, 225.5. Denver 3.5-point road favorites, but Brooklyn's playing at the second fastest pace since the start of January. Adam. Definitely a different team in terms of the way that they play from 2018 to 2019, playing at a greatly elevated pace here. And now you've got this Denver team facing them with a questionable Jamal Murray and Paul Millsap and a guy in Nikola Jokic who has just put up monster numbers on a nightly basis.
Yeah, 2 of my favorite plays on the entire slate from the Denver side here with Jokic and Plumlee. Milt's listed as questionable, but one of the Denver beat writers tweeted that he was that he was unlikely to play. He thinks Murray is going to play. So I'm treating Millsap as if he's not going to play, and if that's the case, then Plumlee becomes one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. Once again, should play around 30 minutes starting alongside Jokic. Josh and I talked this morning about how good Denver's actually been with those two on the floor this season. And so there's no reason to really think that doesn't continue. So I love Plumlee still. And then Jokic is just way too cheap, even on FanDuel at 10,800, 10.6 on DraftKings. Should potentially even get a couple more minutes here, assuming Millsap's out, because you do have Plumlee playing more of his minutes alongside Jokic. So absolutely love Jokic. He's my favorite play out of expensive guys. And then Plumlee, one of my favorite value plays.
Yeah. Now with Plumlee, I'll say a couple things. One, he would become a top value player on this slate, no question. You're getting him at $4,400 on DraftKings. He's $5K flat on FanDuel, very good price. But I will say this much: he played 33 minutes last game. That game blew out. By the way, that was just an ass kicking at the hands of Detroit against that Denver team. So I mean, whatever. That's not a big concern. Plumlee was actually on pace to play more minutes there when Malone emptied the bench, right? I mean, he emptied the bench completely with about, 5 minutes left, 5.5 minutes. Plumlee would have played more in that game. I still think he gets to 30 here, but the reason I bring that up is I wouldn't look at last game, say, man, he could have played 38 minutes and say that that's exactly what should happen tonight, because the Detroit Pistons with that front court, it does force coaches. They do force coaches to make decisions in terms of running bigger lineups at times. So I feel more comfortable putting Plumlee at around 30, where you said, than higher than that, even though it's possible against this Brooklyn team.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And if you give him 30 minutes, you should be getting tons of away.
Exactly.
To your point about the blowout and the way that game went, though, I think Trey Lyles is probably I probably think Trey Lyles is riskier than a lot of
Look at that.
yeah, that was tough to say. Than a lot of other people do today. You know, he played 29 minutes in that game, and I think there's going to be some confirmation bias because people thought that he was a good play with Millsap out, even though we've seen time and time again that he doesn't get a ton more minutes. But then in this game, you know, for one, it blew out, so he played the entire fourth quarter. But you also had Jokic pick up 3 first-half fouls and then pick up another one, pick up his fourth in the third quarter. So Lyles subbed in much earlier than he would have, and then he played the entire fourth because it was a blowout. I think Lyles was on pace for 18 to 20 minutes after that first half. I have him at 20 minutes tonight. I think that there's certainly still some upside for him at a cheap price tag because you don't need a lot to go right for him to pay it off. But assuming people are going to chase that game log because it confirmed what they already thought was going to happen, I would gladly be below the field on Trey Lyles.
If Millsap is out, I have him around 18 minutes.
Yep.
Maybe more, but
yeah, I have 20, but it's the same ballpark.
Right. And plus, you know, you're facing that Detroit team last game. As you mentioned, Jokic with that foul trouble in the second half. Sure, it was only, you know, less than a minute where he caught that third foul, but then grabbed his fourth foul only 5 minutes into the second half. And then Trey Lyles literally played 19 minutes straight to close out the game. Let's say that let's go ahead and say, okay, he comes in, plays 7 minutes in the third, right? And then he starts the fourth quarter. Even if that were to happen again today, there's no question that Jokic comes back at that 6 minute mark and Lyles comes off the floor, unless, of course, like you know, some things that we're not barring any foul trouble or injuries. Lyles is not staying on the court for 12 minutes in the fourth quarter. The problem here is the minutes actually just aren't there. So if you wanted to try and project them for those minutes, I'd love to know where you're getting to that run, given what we've seen from Malone in the past and given the personnel that they have that's healthy enough to play.
Right. I mean, with Murray back, I think the way that you would get there is you just take like all minutes away from Hernangomez or take more minutes away from Hernangomez. But I have Hernangomez at like 8 or 10 minutes, and that's enough to make it so Lyles only has 20.
Right. Even
because he hasn't played the 3 all season.
Right. So Hernangomez played 22 minutes last game, and 14 of them were the final 14 minutes of the game. So it was a blowout, and it was ugly, and they had no chance. And Jokic was in foul trouble. Pretty much a perfect storm for guys like Lyles to get those minutes. But yeah, we don't really need to go that much further. Plumlee and Jokic, 2 fantastic plays here. By the way, against a Brooklyn front court, specifically relating to centers that has really struggled. And I don't see Jared Allen or Ed Davis or Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, any of them being able to even remotely contain Nikola Jokic tonight. It's a problem area for them, and I expect him to produce. Anything else for Denver for you? I will point out that Barton, I know he hasn't been great, and be curious to see what the starting lineup looks like. You know, even with Morris starting in place of Murray, Barton was still getting the start. He's 5,500 on FanDuel, 59 on DraftKings, has played 30-plus minutes in back-to-back games. What do you make of Will Barton here at this price point?
Yeah, I really like the FanDuel price, and even the DraftKings price at $6K I think is fine. This is another matchup where I don't expect Torrey Craig to play a ton of minutes. It's not, you know, a James Harden type matchup. Mm-hmm. So I'm still pretty comfortable with Barton's minutes. And I think that Murray at 6,400 is a decent play as well, assuming he's back. A 27.5% usage rate without Harris on the floor. Him and Barton grade out pretty similar to me on DraftKings, but on FanDuel, Barton obviously more valuable because he's 5,500 at small forward.
Right. Yeah, 5,500. It's still discounted despite him not exactly playing his best basketball. On the other side, you got Brooklyn, 3.5-point home dogs. This game is just pretty friendly in general, although, whew, could you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I could hear.
Whew, man. Try and mute the mic next time. Apologies, friends. Brooklyn's 3.5-point home dogs, 220 totals at 226 on Pinnacle. I'm having a little bit more trouble though getting here. Could you make an argument for Russell? Yeah, you sure could. But then I can make an argument for some really good shooting guard options. Looking at the rest of this lineup, Alan Crabb is expected back. My guess is that following a 25-game hiatus, he's probably going to see limited minutes coming off of a lower body injury, a knee injury, but he's still back. They're starting to get some bodies back in the rotation outside of maybe $5,100 Jared. Hello, Cool Jeff Laffy. Did your neighbors hear that? I don't know. Good question. Jared Allen, 5,100 on DraftKings. I think it's reasonable, but still a pretty unappealing spot. Are you getting to Brooklyn at all tonight?
Not a lot. I agree with you entirely on the issues with Russell. It's a perfectly fine spot for him. He's been playing incredibly well, but the position's really deep. And the same is true for Jared Allen, who I love the price tag at 5,100, but there's just so much opportunity cost at center that it's tough to imagine that he's, a priority play for me. So I think I'll certainly have some because he's 5,100, and if he gets 28 minutes, he should outperform that price tag, but it probably won't be a lot. And the same really goes for Ed Davis at 4,100. Clearly has upside at that price. It's just that you're giving up a lot by rostering one of these guys at center.
Exactly. Must have smelled that one through the mic. Damn. Must have had some Wawa. No Wawa. Actually, it was some delicious beef and poblano, one of those tacos. Pretty delicious, man. Been doing that Hello Fresh deal. Kind of expensive, but it's easy, and they deliver the shit right to your door. You cook it up, you go about your business. Pretty sweet, man. And generally, I don't have to cook it anyway, so it's a win-win situation. You want to move on to the next game here?
Yeah.
All right, let's talk Chicago and New Orleans. 226.5 point total here. How about this? The Bulls 1.5 point favorites against the Pels, who have thrown in the towel. Do you love how the Lakers leaked that they're out of the running for Anthony Davis? Now, granted, the Pels, when I say the Pels tried to fleece them, like when they tried to literally take Yo, Josh, that I'm sorry. Josh posted in our general work Slack chat, can we please reach out to HelloFresh so that Laffy can plug this stuff with a purpose? My fault. All right.
I think Adam laughed so hard that he's gone.
Of course. I'm here. Of course. Yeah, we won't be promoting modem companies anytime soon.
No, I bought a new one yesterday too.
I know you did. I know. You do what you do, man.
Shout out to Netgear Modems.
There it is. All right. Let me regain my composure here. Yeah, someone said you're more professional than I am because you mute the mic. Get out of here, man. Pretty professional, but it might be true. Chicago, New Orleans, though. Did you see what they wanted for Davis? They're like, we'll take Lonzo, we'll take that Kuzma fella. Yeah. We'll take what's his name? Brett Ingram? Yeah, we'll have him too. Toss in any one of your centers, and then we want your first round picks until 2028. How's that sound?
Cryogenically frozen James Worthy and all sorts of other shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Lakers like, I think we're good. So that didn't work out, but you've got no Davis, you've got no Mirotic, you've got no Etuan Moore, you've got no Elfrid Payton, and Julius Randle is a game time decision here. He's missed 6 games. I don't know, dude. My guess as of now is that he continues to sit, and even if he doesn't, I don't think it negatively impacts somebody like Holiday. Expect him to be fine in this case. Really, you're talking about the front court guys that see the biggest hit, but their prices are getting to a point right now where I'm kind of shying away anyway.
Yeah, I have Randall in right now. I don't really know how I feel about that. But
I have no idea.
No, how could we at this point? I'm confident in this much. Anthony Davis is not stepping on the floor for the Pelicans again.
I know. I found Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just found a hilarious tweet from who's that goofball on First Take?
I don't watch ESPN.
Neither do I, but you've got to know who I'm talking about.
Kellerman?
Max Kellerman, yeah. Embiid's injury history is too much to ignore, which is why I would trade him for AD. Now, look, could you make that argument? Of course you could, right?
I mean, I think you'd probably swap them 1 for 1, right?
But that's not the point. To act like Anthony Davis hasn't missed on average 12 games per season over his career and is on pace to miss his 13th of 56 games this season already is just intellectually dishonest.
He's not exactly the Cal Ripken of basketball.
Right. Yes, correct. Not exactly a spotless injury history, but how are you approaching this Pels team? Because I still like Holiday here, man. I think there's legit triple-double upside again, just given the cast of rejects that have been placed around him.
I don't have an issue with him. He's it's not as much ownership as I would have expected earlier today. So if I have some Holiday, I'm okay with it. Honestly, I probably like Okafor more than anybody else on the team, given where his ownership is at. Single digits.
Okay.
I'd rather take that shot. Not that I have some aversion to Drew Holiday. The Bulls are atrocious.
If Randall's in, you still have Okafor as a preferred play? I mean, I know Okafor, I understand they'd be starting alongside each other, but does that make a difference for you?
I mean, it certainly brings him down a little bit. I would guess that would bring the public down more than it would bring me down, so that I can still, be double the field if they're at 3 and I'm at 6 or something.
Right, because then it
takes the shine off for sure.
Yeah, and I don't know because we know it's possible that you could, with the way that Kenrich Williams has played, and I'm not saying that I don't want to pay this much for him. Even if Randall's out, he's getting to a point where it's kind of tough. Yes, he's rebounding spectacularly, and I think he deserves credit for the way that he's played. Just straight hustle, but still, I don't know if I'd get there even if Randall's out now that his price is coming up. And you could see a scenario where Randall gets some minutes at the 5, Williams at the 4, and then Okafor loses some minutes. Will that happen? I don't know, but it'd be a lot easier if Randall was out.
Maybe the NBA teams will just play guys based on their DraftKings positions, and Kenrich Williams can play shooting guard tonight.
I know, unbelievable, right? I swear they just go like this with the new guys, and
I mean, he's a 6'7" guy that shoots threes, so it's not as if it's super far off. But shooting guard is probably one step too far to the left on this positional scale.
You think?
Yeah. Maybe small forward, power forward is a little bit better of a fit here.
Right. At least get the forward part right.
Yeah.
That's all I ask.
Right.
Is there anyone else for New Orleans that you like, whether it be, Frank Jackson and these guys? I think Frank Jackson proved to everyone last game, and this is something I had talked about. We kind of all had that. If Frank Jackson doesn't score real points, he's going to really let you down. Now, he didn't get the minutes that we wanted last game either, but if he doesn't score, you're getting nothing else from Frank Jackson.
Yeah, the public likes him on FanDuel. I get it, 3,700,
Right,
you throw it in the garbage,
cheap.
But I have no interest at 42 on DK. A little bit of Darius Miller, I think, is fine, but there's no love for this Pelicans team.
3,700, I'm fine with it, but just be aware of the risk. He's 3,700 for a reason. He probably should be like 4,500 based on how everyone else is priced, but it's not like you're getting some supreme discount on him either. He's not locked into 35 minutes. He's not going to be seeing a lot of ball handling responsibility. So that kind of hurts. With Holiday, the price is up there, no question. But I still think there's still room for a ceiling game here for a guy who really hasn't had that huge of a game since everybody went down. And Chicago, while they play at a slow pace, is definitely still a really, really bad defensive team. I mean, they're a terrible, terrible team. And with that, we move to Chicago and talk about a few of these guys because Lauri Markkanen I actually like quite a bit today. Chris Dunn has let me down in the past. He is cheap though. He's still leading the team in touches, leading the team in potential assists. So there is room for him to have a solid outing. It's just, the lack of production has been pretty blatant recently. And then you've got guys like Zach LaVine, all of whom on DraftKings specifically are really quite cheap. And even on FanDuel, you wouldn't be overpaying for them either. But man, Markkanen's looked really solid lately, rebounding at 16% over his last 10 games, usage up around 25%, playing big minutes. And he's facing a beat up, shorthanded, fast paced New Orleans squad at home.
Yeah, Levine grading out really, really well for me. He's also popular. I think we're about to get Adam back, so I'll close this out. Markkanen's actually at 20% ownership on DK right now. I think I'd be more likely to take a little bit more Portis than Markkanen. I think they're close enough that I would just sort of try to flip-flop on the public. Like if Markkanen's 20 and Portis is 10, I'd just try to go to the opposite direction. Doesn't mean that I don't
perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, not that I hate Markkanen or anything. Just feels a little high for this particular spot.
I think the spot's really good though. That I find this to be a really good spot for him. Maybe that's where we differ. I don't have anything against this matchup with New Orleans.
Yeah, I guess I don't either. I mean, it should be a nice pacey spot. 1.03 fantasy points per minute over his last 30. I just want more out of this dude. Maybe I'm grading him in like the wrong scale in my head. I mean, it all comes down to how many minutes you expect Bobby Portis to play today, really.
Right, but that's the problem because we don't know what to expect from Bobby Portis, right? He could go from 34 minutes to 19 minutes to 24 minutes, and nobody would have really any idea why. Like, yes, obviously, Bobby Portis having a very strong game means that Bobby Portis could stay on the court more. Last game, 33-9 across 34 minutes. But, he shot 10 of 17 with 26 points the game prior to that and played 24 minutes. So I don't know if Jim Boylan knows what he's doing with Bobby Portis right now.
I'm confident he doesn't. But welcome back, Ship My Modem.
Dude, I didn't even realize I had dropped out. Like, Lofty was laughing, and then it got really quiet. So I thought he just, like, muted himself. And I'm just sitting there like, what the hell is he doing? And then I looked and realized I wasn't connected.
Well, we've made it back-to-back shows now, so let's...
No, two out of three.
It wasn't yesterday?
No, it's Monday.
Oh, okay. All right, well, all right, so we're 2 of 3. Thanks, Josh.
Have fun,
as always, much appreciated.
Back to Red Dead.
Stand by.
I'm here.
Oh man, I just came across the Skinner gang in Red. Well, we don't have time for this. What do you have on New Orleans and Chicago? Josh and I broke it down, but we'll get your take here. Anybody that you?
Yeah, not a whole lot for me. Randall for like 26 to 28 minutes. It makes him okay in tournaments, just on DraftKings, especially where he's like 7,700, because clearly he can go nuts in this spot, but certainly not a priority for me. Drew Holiday I like, but again, the shooting guard position is really, really deep. Okafor, same thing. I think that he gets 32 to 34 minutes in a really nice spot. There's just a lot of centers to like, so I'm sure I'll have some, but not a real key for me like Jokic is. And then on the other side, I caught the end of what you were saying about Portis, and I agree completely. I mean, the minutes are all over the place. Jabari Parker is back today. I have Portis at 26 minutes. That gets him in some lineups at 5,900, or at least it should for me on DraftKings. Have him projected for like 32 points. It is a favorable spot. It's just that the minutes are all over the place. Even last game, most of his minutes came at center, which on one hand is good because it's not like he just stole minutes from Jabari Parker. But on the other hand, we just haven't seen that happen consistently. And Parker coming back does allow the Bulls to play Markkanen at the 5 for a few extra minutes. So I have Portis at 26. I think that'll probably get him in some lineups, but not enough to the point where it like ruins my night if he doesn't play a lot.
Yeah. Right. 26 minutes sounds about right. You know what? You could be 8 minutes off because he plays 18, or you could be 8 minutes off because he plays 34. Or what? Yeah, 34. That really hard to say. So, why not throw him right around 26 since we really don't know? I had mentioned to Josh, though, I do think it's a good spot for Markkanen. And $6,900 on DraftKings, the opportunity cost is not that much there against a banged up New Orleans squad that, since Anthony Davis down, is allowing the third most rebounds to their opponents. The fact that Markkanen is rebounding so well has actually made me like him quite a bit more because I'm not relying solely on scoring from him. Do you have anything else for the Chicago team when it comes to Markkanen or Chris Dunn or Zach LaVine?
Yeah, I think Levine at 6,600 on DraftKings is just way too cheap as well. Obviously, he's become very scoring dependent since Chris Dunn joined the lineup, and the whole team that trio got healthy. But he should still play 35 to 36 minutes, assuming this game's competitive. So I like him quite a bit.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, I think there are actually a few places you can get to on Chicago. I don't think you get there with that high exposure, but all of these guys in this spot, mind you, it's a significant pace up spot for Chicago, significant, and I think that affects them. Plus, 1.5 point spread here with a bad Bulls team. I like it in a 227 total, so or 226. All right, let's talk Milwaukee and Washington. The second time these guys will face each other in a week. It's the third meeting this season. Giannis missed one of them earlier in the year, I think January 11th or so. But the Milwaukee Bucks here are heavy favorites, 11.5 points, 230 total. It's the third highest mark on this slate. And, well, I guess we'll talk about Giannis, who we say this quite often, that, with Harden being Harden, you haven't really heard a whole lot about Giannis, but since the start of the new year, he's still at 1 3/4 fantasy points per minute with 34% usage, 27% assists, and 20% rebounding. Elite numbers across the board. Now he's facing this Washington squad that's been running, heavy lineups without Thomas Bryant, where you've got, whether it be Satoransky and Beal or McRae and Beal or Randall Beal, Ariza, Porter, and Green. I just don't see a way where now, does this mean that Giannis is going to smash today? Not necessarily, but I don't see any way in which Washington's even able to slightly contain him tonight.
Yeah, I mean, even over the stretch where their defense has supposedly, outside of the last couple of games, been better, they still have really struggled in terms of rim protection and defending within 6 feet of the basket, which we know is where most of Giannis's damage comes from offensively. So it's still a great spot for him.
Look at their personnel. Right. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously really like Giannis. There's a ton of blowout risk in this game, but I still think it's one of the most interesting games on the slate from a fantasy standpoint, because both of these teams have very concentrated production, like where they get their scoring from. Milwaukee basically have 4.5 guys. It's their starters, and that's about it. Washington, it's the same thing. It's the 4 starters plus Jeff Green. So if this game does stay close, there's a pretty good chance that it's a high scoring game. And if it does stay close, where the production's coming from, who's getting the minutes, and it just makes for a really, really interesting game stack spot here, I think. And I'll be using more rules than normal on this game because the Washington guys are all at pretty nice prices for the minutes that they play in competitive games. But if this game's competitive, I'm going to want Milwaukee guys with them, because it means that you're getting 30 plus minutes from underpriced Bledsoe and Middleton, and maybe 34 from Giannis. And then on the other side, if Giannis goes off, I think you need to pair the Milwaukee guys with Washington guys as much as I want to pair Washington with Milwaukee. But I also don't really want like Giannis with Middleton unless I have some Washington guys coming back.
Right. Yeah, fair enough. You like Middleton over Bledsoe?
No.
Okay, neither do I. I think that Bledsoe price is pretty nice too, which is why, in the last game I mentioned Chris Dunn. I don't think Chris Dunn is a terrible play, but I'd rather get up to Bledsoe. Just far more consistent, higher ceiling, equally, if not a better matchup. And when you talk about how Washington has just sprung massive leaks against point guards all season long, again, look at who they've got in the backcourt. It's really not a surprise that Bledsoe should be in a really prime spot tonight. And $6,700 on draft. $6,800 is nice. Even on FanDuel at $7,500, I have no issue with it at all. I don't think somebody like Malcolm Brogdon's a terrible play either. How much I get to is yet to be seen, but I don't think he's a terrible play. This is a Washington team or a Milwaukee team that's in a really favorable spot. But on the flip side of this game, you have a Washington squad that has Ariza, who's been, playing 39, 40 minutes. If this game doesn't stay competitive, then, well, it's a whole different story. And mind you, while we don't really factor blowouts into our analysis most nights, there are 3 games tonight that have significant blowout risk. And by significant, I mean the Warriors against a Spurs team that's down 3 of their starters. And then Utah against Phoenix, that's down one of their, only 2 or 3 decent players. And then, of course, this one. But, Ariza's playing 40 minutes a night. Otto Porter back in the starting lineup, played 38 minutes last game, 34 minutes in the starting lineup when he was reinserted against Milwaukee on the second. So there are some players to talk about here. What do you make of this? I want to save Jordan McRae for last, so don't get into him yet.
Yeah, so I mean, the price tags on these guys are nice. It's a huge pace up spot for them. Ariza's getting big minutes even in blowouts because he just plays so many minutes that he's picking up, 36 minutes in 3 quarters or something
Brooks
like that.
Loves
close to it.
Brooks wants to kill his old players. How many times have we said that?
Yeah, especially with Ariza potentially out the door tomorrow.
Right.
No reason not to.
He wants him to be worthless. He wants him to be worthless when he joins another team.
So yeah, I mean, Beal obviously has a ton of upside. If I play Beal, I really want someone from Milwaukee though. Same goes with most of these guys, like I said, but especially Beal since he's more expensive. Jeff Green coming off the bench, I really like here. When these teams played last week, Jan Mahinmi did not play, which makes a ton of sense, seeing as how Milwaukee really does not have a center that he needs to be out there for. And so we just saw Thomas Bryant and Jeff Green. Green sees a usage bump coming off the bench. In these last 3 games since leaving the starting lineup, he has about a 27% usage rate. Even if you cut that back a bit, you get really good production from him, and he should play still north of 30 minutes off the bench, with most of those minutes coming at center. So I like him a lot. And then Ariza, Porter, Satoransky, just play ownership between them.
Yeah. Did you when we look at Bradley Beal, he kind of falls into the same category that I've been talking about since John Wall went out. I think like 17 or 18 games. He's had a few strong ones, and his floor has been very high. But Bradley Beal's ceiling, outside of that 93 fantasy point game, I just have trouble getting there when you've got like the Luka Doncic and several other guys that we've yet to talk about. I don't know how often I get to Bradley Beal here.
Yeah, I don't really like him that much as a standalone play. I obviously like him, paired with some guys from Milwaukee. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. So the reason I said save McRae for last is because you had mentioned in today's strategy show that there were a lot of people that liked him quite a bit. I think it's important. And look, you do whatever you want. We don't tell you who to play. We tell you who we like and try and break down the games as comprehensively as we can and figure out why things have happened and why things or what will happen in the coming games. But if you look at the last game, not only did you have Beal foul trouble, but you had many other factors that played into Jordan McRae's elevated run. Let's go ahead and break it down because I know we're going to have questions on it.
Yeah, I mean, he subbed in the half after Bradley Beal picked up his 3rd foul. He then played very, very well and single-handedly cut the gap. Washington went on, I think it was a 21-5 run, basically on the back of Jordan McRae just scoring a ton of baskets. And then in the second half, he basically replaced Sam Decker in the rotation, obviously different positions, but he took those minutes, played, a ton of the second half in a game that wasn't really that competitive, but he kept kind of bringing Washington back into it. So it was a game where going into that game, he wasn't in the rotation outside of, foul trouble to Beal or blowouts. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Actually, I would expect him to actually be in the rotation now, especially in this game against Milwaukee, where I don't expect Jan Mahinmi to play, and I expect it to be pretty small. I think he's in the rotation, but it's still like Sam Decker or, like Troy Brown when he's getting minutes. I have McRae projected for 18 minutes here. If the game goes sideways and he gets to like 22, that's, certainly possible. But I don't think that there's any reason to chase what he did last game, because if you just think about where the minutes would have to come from for it to be, meaningful minutes, you'd have to be taking minutes away from, Satoransky or Beal or, Ariza or Porter. Like he's not getting minutes over these guys outside of foul trouble or injury or blowout.
Yeah, pretty much. I said the same thing in today's deep dive. To me, I don't see the need. Plus, it's not like we're devoid of value on this slate. Like if you got to Satoransky, if you got to McRae last game, good work. But he was in line to, like, if Beal didn't get into foul trouble, how many minutes does McRae play in that game?
If Beal doesn't get into foul trouble and it's close, he plays 0. If Beal doesn't get into foul trouble and it keeps going the way it was going, he plays like the fourth quarter.
14. Yeah,
Right.
14, 15 minutes. Yeah, I mean, he directly filled in for Bradley Beal with big foul trouble in the first half. But this game's solid. I mean, look, Milwaukee playing at a very fast pace recently, still a very good defense. And by very good, I mean one of, if not the best defense in the league right now. They're really, really solid. But when you're seeing as many possessions as you are, and when these Washington players are seeing as many minutes as they are, there's definitely, it mitigates a lot of that concern. So while Milwaukee's got the best defensive rating since the start of 2019, they're also playing at the fourth fastest pace. They allow the most three-point attempts as well. Do with that as you please. All right, you want to move on to Dallas and Charlotte here?
Yeah.
All right, if you have anything else, speak now. You sounded
Nope,
like you were okay. You sound like you were uncertain for a second.
No,
Dallas,
I was just reading something.
Okay, Dallas 5.5 point favorites, 215.5 total here. Yo, Luka Doncic has been unreal, and now the Beret is out for the year, has been, and DeAndre Jordan is in New York. You have Doncic as your leading scorer, your leading facilitator, meaning he's leads the team in points, leads the team in assists, and leads the team in rebounds per game. With Jordan Smith and Wes Matthews off the floor, he has a 33% usage rate, nearly a 30% assist rate, a 13% rebounding rate, which is spectacular, and 1.45 fantasy points per minute. So whether it's Luka Doncic, who I like quite a bit, or Tim Hardaway, if he starts, and who I like a lot, not being relied upon to shoulder the load as your go-to primary scorer in New York, but playing alongside Doncic at 4,900 on DraftKings. There's a little bit that I like here for Dallas tonight.
Yeah, same here. Luka's been great. Even if you don't worry about the guys on or off, as the season's gone on, he's been very productive. But without Dennis Smith Jr., you have an assist percentage, up over 35%. He's averaged over 1.4 fantasy points per minute. Hardaway coming in, it adds one high use or potentially high usage guy to this lineup, but it's still a team that doesn't have other, high usage guys. So it's still, Luka's team. I don't see any reason to think that he, drops off. I think that from now on, he's going to, flirt with triple doubles pretty much every night. And Charlotte hasn't been good defensively. The price tags come on Luka a little bit, but he was just so underpriced before that's not really a concern, because I still think he's underpriced, just not quite as badly as last time. So I like him a lot. And then Hardaway, 4,900, you mentioned if he starts, and I agree, because I have Hardaway projected to basically just take Wes Matthews minutes. And if he starts, I would kind of take that as assuming that I might be right. If he comes off the bench, it would really concern me, since obviously that's not what Wes Matthews was doing. But right now I have him projected at 32 minutes. And if you look at his numbers with New York, and obviously it's going from team to team, so it's hard to exactly replicate. But I ran it with Emmanuel Mudiay on the floor and with Enes Kanter off, to basically put him with one ball dominant high usage guy and not have Enes Kanter out there also. And he had like a 26.5% usage rate, a 16% assist percentage. I cut that back a little bit to like 24%, since Luka obviously is going to get more than Emmanuel Mudiay. But still have Hardaway projecting as a really good play at his price tag. Me
too. And another thing, yeah, Hardaway was a higher usage player in New York, but just because he's might join the starting lineup and play alongside Doncic, it's not going to take anything away from Doncic. Shots still have to be taken, right?
Yep.
That just like if you were to take Hardaway out of the lineup, Doncic, it doesn't mean he's going to shoot 35 times per game. The shots still have to go somewhere. So yeah, Hardaway gets some additional shots. It probably means less for your Harrison Barnes or whoever else is out there. Maybe Doncic sees his usage come down a percent or two, but it's nothing notable. And actually, I think it helps both of them. It's not a bad thing to have someone that can spot up and can get shots off from pretty much any range, like Hardaway on the floor. It doesn't hurt Doncic. And it should really help Hardaway that he has someone like Luka Doncic on the floor next to him. So yeah, if he starts, 4,900 to me is just kind of absurd because, as you pointed out, I would expect him to see, Wes Matthews style minutes, 31, 32 minutes at 4,900 against to be fair, a very slow pace Charlotte team, but not a good Charlotte team and not a good Charlotte defense. It's too cheap to get away from there at 4,900. Do you have any other interest in Dallas?
Not particularly. I mean, obviously, nice cheap price tags on Maxey and on Dwight Powell, but nothing that is a priority.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. I had trouble really getting anywhere else. On the Charlotte side, you've talked about this a lot, and you're absolutely right that what's his name? Kemba Walker has been a lot better with Cody Zeller on the floor. And Cody Zeller came off the bench last game. It's like, that's not great. Well, Kemba played alongside Zeller played with Kemba Walker in 17 of his 23 minutes. And if you look at how that worked, it's almost like James Borrego knew that Kemba was better with Cody Zeller on the floor. With the way that rotation looked, it looked like there was an emphasis that it was intentional, purposeful to get them out there together. And you had mentioned the second quarter that we saw from Kemba, where most of those minutes came with Zeller. Now, it is a second of a back-to-back, just getting this out there. Not only is it a second of a back-to-back in Zeller's second game playing, but it's also their fourth game in 6 days and their second back-to-back in 6 days. Do with that as you please. Might mean nothing, but at the same time, that's a lot of games. They are playing on the road, and I did want to get it out there. What are you doing, if anything, with the Charlotte Hornets tonight?
Kemba's really all that I'm interested in from the Hornets, and even that is kind of like lukewarm. And for one, the scheduling stuff that you just said obviously makes it a little bit less appealing, but just a deep position. I mean, 8,800 on this particular slate. Obviously, he has the ability to outscore that price tag, but there's just, other guys. Levine is $200 less expensive. D'Angelo Russell's less expensive. There's just a ton of different spots to go to. So, I have Kemba at like 45 DraftKings points, which is, good. I just don't know how much of that I'll actually get. Beyond him, though, there's really just nothing from Charlotte that I'm interested in.
Right. Me neither. I think Kemba's an interesting tournament play, though. But outside of that, I'm going to have trouble getting there. Marvin Williams, reasonably priced, getting big minutes. We got a question. Do you ever weigh home road splits? Kemba historically is poor on the road. I do if I think there's a purpose for it. If I can, I won't talk about home road splits, Adam, and I'll let you give your take on here. We got a little bit of time. I have no interest in home road splits if I don't think there's actually a reason that I can identify. If it's just, one season it looked that way, or if it's all their whole career, if there are reasons that I think it's for that being the case, then maybe I'll look further into it. But if you just look at Kemba this year, outside of his field goal percentage being down a little bit, fantasy point wise, he's pretty much right there. It's one fantasy point difference, home and road.
Yeah, I normally I have to have a good reason to give it, a lot of weight. So I don't factor it in with someone like Kemba. There's just so much noise in it that
Right.
more often than not, you're going to do better by not caring about it.
All right. Let's talk about Utah and Phoenix. Unfortunately, we have to. No Devin Booker, no DeAnthony Melton, no TJ Warren. Houston 15.5-point favorites at home. And that line might be a little soft. 217 total. Honestly, it's likely that Elie Okobo and Jamal Crawford play 30 minutes here again. Look, I'll be honest with you. If this game did stay close or even remotely competitive, I would be shocked. But hey, wilder things have happened. Atlanta came in there and kept it close for 3.5 quarters just a week ago. But that's probably where we'll see a bunch of minutes. And then Kelly Oubre has gotten 30-plus minutes now in 6 straight games and 8 of his last 10. Well over a fantasy point per minute guy with Booker off the court. And he's played consistently through blowouts as well. So even if that is a concern, Oubre should get the run. But it is still the Utah Jazz. They're still a very efficient defense that play at a relatively slower pace, kind of middle of the league. I want to start with Phoenix here and get into the Oubres and the Josh Jacksons and the Aitons and the Okobos and the Crawfords. Adam, where do you stand on these guys?
Yeah, so I'm actually just really interested in this game. The first thing is I agree that it absolutely could blow out, but I don't really think it matters because Phoenix, most of these guys we've seen play in blowouts anyway. And Utah, Quinn Snyder, unless it's like an absolute like embarrassment and it would be embarrassing to the other team, he normally gives his guys some fourth quarter minutes at home in blowouts anyway. Right. All you have to do is look back to the last game when they got destroyed by Houston, and you still had the entire starting lineup start the fourth quarter down by about 30. You had Mitchell and one of the other starters play until like, I don't know, there are 4 minutes left or something. So these are two teams that I'm not really even that concerned about the blowout. Like that.
Did you see the size of Kokoskov's rotation last game against Houston?
He played the Phoenix Houston game?
Yeah, he played 8 players. 8 players in total, and that was with Booker playing 33 minutes. He played 8 players.
Yeah.
I mean, that's relevant if you're talking about the blowouts here. Granted, that wasn't a blowout, but a guy that's only running 8 guys will generally run them deeper into games regardless of score.
Right. And we'd seen, before that, we'd seen Oubre playing garbage time anyway. Earlier this year, we saw Ayton playing garbage time. Elie Okobo, there's no reason that he wouldn't play garbage time. So it's just not that concerning to me here. I think that Kelly Oubre is a good play just because I think he's a good basketball player and he's still cheap, and you should get, huge minutes here. It's not a great matchup. He's averaged about 1.14 DraftKings points per minute without Booker or Ayton or Booker or Warren on the floor this season. 26%, 26% usage rate for him. And it's just good enough to be productive even as one of the main scorers. Josh Jackson sees a big bump in his usage as well, but his per minute production doesn't really improve because he's just not good enough for it to improve as one of the primary scorers. But still huge minutes at a cheap price tag makes him fine. I prefer Oubre, but he's a perfectly fine play. Elie Okobo sees his usage rate and his assist percentage jump when he's not playing with Devin Booker. I expect him to get over 30 minutes here. So tough matchup. Really difficult player to trust, but only $3,500. Same goes for Jamal Crawford, who I think gets 28 to 30 minutes. And obviously is a capable scorer. Ayton has a 23% usage rate, 15% rebounding percentage. He's averaged about 1.1 fantasy points per minute without Booker or Warren. He's really cheap on DraftKings. I like all these guys, even though the matchup's tough, just because of their price tags. I would, I guess, rank it, including price tags, Oubre, Okobo, Jackson, Ayton.
Okay. Yeah. Oubre for me would be is my top player from Phoenix. You just said the same. And ITMR, it's like Laffy predicted a blowout. Yeah. To be clear, though, it doesn't mean that I'm avoiding it. It just means that I don't think this game stays competitive. But it doesn't mean that I'm super concerned. Again, we've seen very condensed rotations here, and now you have no Booker. Even if you did get a 9-man rotation or so, Oubre's still going to get a ton of run off the bench, and he's going to be playing without any high usage players here. So to me, 26, 27, 28% usage is very much a possibility, and that to me is enough. Now, aside from that, guys like Okobo and Crawford, it's ugly. There's no question. I mean, Okobo has really failed to manufacture much when given extended minutes. Once in a while, he'll have decent games. Recently, though, they've came against much inferior opponents that play way worse defense. He is dirt cheap, so there's that, but that's really all there is to it. 30 minutes at a dirt cheap price tag would be the only reason you're considering him, not because you think he's a particularly good player or even a remotely good player. It's just there's opportunity at a dirt cheap cost. On the Utah side of this, Adam, Rudy Gobert, I mean, obviously it's a great spot. Ricky Rubio, who is also affordable. Donovan Mitchell, I don't see myself paying for Donnie Mitchell here. Jingles, 5,400 on DraftKings. I mean, these guys all obviously have a premier spot against this Phoenix team. It's not even that the blowout, it's more so just the players around them at their positions I keep finding myself getting to more of and haven't really found it necessary to get here. Are you on a different page? Is this a Utah team that you're targeting heavily tonight?
I think I like them a little more. I don't like Mitchell that much because of the price tag. Rubio being back, now Neto being back also takes away the backup point guard minutes. But I still really like 8,500 for Rudy Gobert. I think this is a spot where he should, have a very nice game. I love the $6,000 price tag on Ricky Rubio, assuming that he's still on the Jazz as of 9 p.m. tonight. Crowder joined the starting lineup and played huge minutes last game against Houston. Houston. So I think that at 4,600, he's a pretty good play. And then Ingles is, Ingles, I have him at 33 minutes and like 30 points. So I think all four of those guys are good plays. Gobert's my favorite, followed by Rubio, followed by Crowder, followed by Ingles.
All right. Sounds good. Let's close it out with two really interesting games here. Before we do, I just want to let you know that if you haven't checked out awesemo.com yet, I welcome you to do so. I urge you to do so. Head over to awesemo.com, AWESEMO. And if you want to get a subscription and get half off your first month of your membership, it's very easy. Just click on Join Now. And when you do so, you will select your plan. You can include the Fantasy Cruncher add-on as well. And after you select your plan, put in your information, takes 2 seconds, click Have a Coupon. Yes, you do. Your coupon code is Deeper Dive, all one word, Deeper Dive. Select that, check out, you're good to go. You get half off your first month at awesemo.com. Our ownership projections that we reference on the show every day, the lineup builder, Alex Baker, Awesemo himself, his rankings, all of his stuff, the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, and projections and content for all of our other sports at awesemo.com. Deeper Dive is the code, one word, half off your first month of subscription at awesemo.com. We hope to see you over there. All right, Sacramento, Houston, highest total of the slate. Adam, I'll tell you what, 235.5 total. Houston 3-point favorites here. Harden again played 40% of his minutes without Chris Paul last game. Paul played 33, as he does on the season, percent of his minutes without Harden. So there is still a nice balance there that D'Antoni has working. I like both of these guys today against this Sacramento team that plays at a mighty fast pace. There's actually a lot I like from this game. I like Fareed too. I like Willie Cauley-Stein at a dirt cheap cost at the other end. You have any excitement towards this Houston-Sacramento game?
Yeah, there are guys where the price tags are a little more expensive than I would like, but still plenty of guys that I like here. Harden on DraftKings I like. FanDuel, I see no reason to pay $14,000 for James Harden
I agree. Especially when Giannis is 11-9.
Right, and he's just less valuable there anyway because of the scoring and because of the deductions for turnovers and everything. So DraftKings specifically,
his price actually came down on DraftKings since last game.
Right, which I mean it should. Whenever Paul's playing, it should be heading down. Sure. So I mean if you can get to him on DraftKings, then by all means. But Chris Paul at 7,100, I really like as well. 33 minutes last game. I have him at 32 here just to kind of, try and be safe, but that should still get him in plenty of lineups. Kenneth Fareed played 34 minutes. I don't see any reason why that doesn't happen again, especially against a big Sacramento team. He's averaged over a fantasy point per minute so far, so I like him, not as much as I like Harden or Paul, but, I like him as well. Eric Gordon, if you need a, $4,800 guy, he's questionable, but should play, big minutes in a favorable spot. It's still Eric Gordon, and he's not all that productive, but he's cheap.
All right. Yeah, to echo that, well, I've already said it, but to echo the sentiment of Harden on DraftKings, definitely a better play. Chris Paul, I still think is perfectly reasonable in price. The staggering of these minutes is really important. You get him 10, 12 minutes without Harden each game. Very, very productive with those minutes. And even alongside Harden, it doesn't mean he can't do anything. And then Kenneth Fareed, look, D'Antoni does not have the bodies here to go up against this front court. I think Fareed gets, he could play upwards of 36, 37 here. I'm not projecting him for that, but I wouldn't be surprised. They'll desperately need him. Yes, the 6'9" Fareed, they're going to need him. But on the other side, Adam, the truth is, as well as Fareed has been at helping this team and on a per minute basis, the truth is they have really struggled against centers since Clint Capella went down. I mean, they've been crushed in terms of scoring, in terms of field goal percentage, rebounding, and it's not a big surprise. They're super undersized, and now you've got guys like Willie Cauley-Stein at a very cheap cost. Marvin Bagley, who's finally beginning to see those minutes. Will he see it in this matchup against a smaller team? I don't know, but I think he's been too productive to assume that he goes back to Jaeger giving him less run than he deserves. I actually like the front court for Sacramento here. You have any interest in the Kings?
Yeah, I like the front court too. Bagley, I expect to be really popular for a good reason. Coming off the best career, the minutes have been up.
5,800.
Right, exactly. So he's a really good play. Just know that he's going to be popular. Cauley Stein, I expect to be lower owned, and he really should be because of the position. You can roster Bagley at power forward. You have to roster Cauley Stein at center, so it makes him less valuable. But I like that we kind of have like a 28-minute floor on Cauley Stein, barring foul trouble and everything, even though Giles and Bagley are getting minutes. I think that you can get, 28 to 30 from Cauley Stein here in a really productive spot, and the price tag's cheap. So I like him. Heald and Fox, both, secondary plays for me. And if you need value that probably goes overlooked,
Iman Shumpert. I knew it was coming. I knew it.
So 34 minutes last game, 30 the game before that, at least 30 minutes in 3 out of his last 4. But he's the guy where, we talked about it with Torrey Craig going up against James Harden, he's on the team for one reason, and you expect those guys to get more minutes in matchups like this. I have Shumpert at 31 or 32 minutes because I don't want to go too crazy with it, but I do think that he gets over 30 minutes here, barring foul trouble or anything like that. And the extension of that it still makes me really scared to play Bogdan Bogdanovic, because we've seen his minutes basically negatively correlate with Shumpert's. In the games where Shumpert plays a lot, Bogdanovic hasn't been playing a lot. And this is a game where I expect Shumpert's defense to be needed.
That's right. I'm with you. Surprisingly, I'm with you on Shump. All right, we got to hurry it up here, but I don't want to short anybody on this last game. Golden State, San Antonio. I will turn it over to you. I don't know what's going on with the front court for the Spurs. It's going to be tough. But Derek White's out. Aldridge is out. DeRozan is out. So you've got Bertans. You've got Bellinelli, guys like Bryn Forbes, Patty Mills, Rudy Gay, production 1.62 fantasy points per minute with all 3 of them off the court in 108 minutes this year. Go ahead, finish this out for us, Adam. Give the viewers what they need.
This is what I was alluding to at the beginning of the show when I said that things can go a million different ways and nobody really knows. Yep. We can guess all we want, but I really want to prioritize the cheapest Spurs and the lowest owned Spurs and take advantage of all the uncertainty here. I don't think it would be surprising at all to see a lot of Lonnie Walker minutes at $3,000. Jakob Poeltl I like quite a bit at $3,200. He's obviously younger than Gasol. He matches up better with this Golden State team from a defensive standpoint. I would guess that he gets more minutes at center. Davis Bertans should play as many minutes as he can handle. He's only $4,100, so I like him. Bryn Forbes, I'm not concerned about his minutes, so I like him. Rudy Gay, I would prefer to pair him with guys from Golden State because I can't imagine that he gets any sort of blowout run whatsoever. Yep. He is really productive, like you said, but I would just want to have him paired with Golden State guys, preferably. Bellinelli, I like him. He's been very productive in this situation, but if he is projected for high ownership, I would be absolutely terrified of rostering him because he's another one where, for one, I don't think it would be surprising if Pop just rests him anyway. And for two, I could definitely see him just being pulled at like the first sign of a blowout.
Right. Yeah, I think Bertans is pretty safe with minutes. With Pau Gasol and Poeltl, flip a coin. The same thing with Gay. If this game gets out of hand early, Pau Gasol, there's no reason Pop would give him more than like 11, 15 minutes.
Right.
But he is on a per minute basis actually still okay. It's just this Golden State team. I guess with Cousins, it's a little easier now, but Pau never got any minutes no matter what team he was on against this Warriors team in the past. Any interest in the Warriors? We've got to get out of here.
Nothing that's a priority for me. I think that, Clay and Draymond are cheap enough and they start the fourth quarter, which is nice. But there are just so many, good mid-tier and high-range plays on this slate that I'm not really getting to a lot of Golden State.
All right. Hey, we got to get out of here, but we just hit our highest viewership total ever on the Deeper Dive. We appreciate you guys a whole lot. That's awesome. About to get up to 1,700 all at once. It was a concurrent. Anyway, hit that like button if you appreciate the content and want to see more. It really helps us out, and we appreciate it greatly. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you always know when content's going to drop. Stick around. Live Before Lock coming up next on Wednesday night. Eddie and Chris taking you up till 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Good luck tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Deeper Dive.
Good show.